What's up, everybody? Nick Powell's publisher of 1851franchise.com here with another episode of Meet the Zor. Today we are talking express employment. Coming up next. All right, Vinny, actually, we're going to start with you to frame this. What is your franchise backstory? How did you accidentally fall into franchising?
I appreciate you say fall into it. I think that's most answers are about falling in. Uniquely enough, mine was right out of college. I graduated finance accounting and went right into franchising. At the time, I knew franchising was simply food, like many. Enjoyed the role. I really liked the entrepreneurial spirit that a lot of the owners had, betting on themselves, partnering in a system. And I stayed in that career for now what is almost 14 years. So very much enjoy it. The entrepreneur spirit's what's got me. That's what got me from the beginning.
So you fall into this thing. At what point are you understanding the framework or construct of franchising?
It was early on. It was an emerging franchise. So in that, most would fully understand. It's a small, tight network. Owners are putting their life savings on the line, and every single one of them that have the success, that's what keeps the brand growing. It was early because I knew that how much support and how much satisfaction those franchisees had in those early days, that was going to be our key for continued momentum.
I ask that question often, and I think about my own. I'm going to your website now because it's always the same story, even yours. So your website says picture yourself as a franchisee. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting, and I would say you and I are sophisticated human beings. We are college educated. We're educated. We understand business. Yet when we fall into franchising, it's like, well, what is it? And what is the contract? Even if it goes fast or slow. And so if I look at what's interesting, I look at every franchise website and we go towards here's the sell of the opportunity versus here's the education of what franchising is, because what you just said is it's emerging brand. I love seeing that the owners are investing their life savings into this thing, but now the investment side is complex. But before that, it's even what is franchising, and you're handed this giant FDD. Like, well, what is that? And so I'm focused on this because I think about and it's really a lack of education that starts at a younger age that goes through college. Franchising is such a huge part of our economy, yet it's so undervalued in the way that we educate human beings on how it works.
Completely agree. And uniquely enough, it is now offered in course structure in many universities now. Not enough, I would argue. To your point, I mean, it's a global franchise system that exists. So clearly not just North America, but across the globe, businesses are investing in this franchise concept. Individuals are investing in it. But yeah, to your point, at a university level, teaching someone what is the 101 of franchising, it wasn't until I had a job offer that I was like, okay, well, let me find out what franchising really is.
So going over to Express, and I want you to explain the business model as if a franchise buyer is watching this. But on a flip side, I want you to explain the career transition, because so many human beings go from chaos in a job into business ownership, even at the lowest level of investment. So do you explain the business, and then do you find that you are somewhat an educator of what franchising is as an alternative to career?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so from a business model perspective, Express, 40 years of history. We have 100% franchise locations. So every one of our offices out there of the 860 are locally owned. That local owner works with clients, businesses in their communities who have open job positions, and they work with prospective employees, people who are looking for jobs. They make the match happen. They are the local matchmaker. And obviously their revenue stream is by putting those two parties together and servicing both sides from a customer experience perspective. As far as us playing educator on the franchising side, we do to a degree, but we find that especially in today's market with, IFA, broker networks out there, there's a lot of individuals coming to us well-informed, understanding the industry as a whole. They have that entrepreneurial drive, but they don't want to reinvent the wheel. So they're saying, okay, franchising makes sense. I can, buy into a system, invest capital, but I don't have to create everything along the way. They're going to show me, and in many cases, teach me what others have missed, failed, made mistakes on, so I can avoid those.
Out of curiosity, and this might sound like an odd question, but are you competing almost against franchising on the customer side because you're helping an employer align with an employee? Yet in franchising, we're almost taking employees off the street and saying, go be a business owner instead.
It's a unique perspective. We'd argue that anyone who's happy and satisfied in the role has a great job. Anyone who's looking elsewhere, they're going to eventually move, or we've heard the word silently quit, within their existing role. So we like to think that in both opportunities, we're helping someone who wants to make a move. We're just helping transition in the way that maybe benefits Express and them.
All right. You guys have longevity and legacy, multi-generational business operators. Like, you have all of these things, and you have size and scale. Does that make it more challenging to grow today? And what is winning when it comes to franchise growth?
Sure. It's growth is always going to be everyone's desire. I think right now we're in a phase of the maturity of the brand where growth looks different. It may not be adding more and more unique new territories. It may be helping, in some cases, second generation owners transition through retirement and sale of their existing very successful business to find that next generation of owner. We would argue both are growth. Of course, a net new territory, that would be, immediate growth. We view it as someone who is looking to retire, that has a succession plan, helping them find a resale. I mentioned earlier, over 860 existing units. To your point, longevity, 40-year brand. Retirements are happening, and we've found great value. And if we can streamline that process, get involved early, help them with succession planning, think 2, 3, 4 years in advance, we see success with the new owner who comes in, new lifeblood. They've invested their capital. They want to grow. So it can be growth in a unique way.
I love that last part. And again, I'm looking at your website and trying to take some of the words that you say and say, how are we positioning it over here?
Sure.
But that last statement, there's so many rich things in it. One, people are reaching the age of retirement, so they've built up an asset because it's under Express. There's value to it, and therefore they can sell it to new blood that coming in or old blood.
Sure.
Like, that's such a powerful thing in franchising. And what you just said is we actually help people on the succession planning side. I think far too many franchisors don't celebrate the value of the resale and don't celebrate the end of a run as a business operator. Yet I think that's the most beautiful thing about franchising is not only can you build wealth and equity over time as your own business owner, at some point you're going to have an asset that you can sell at the end. And I would like, obviously, if you had all the time in the world to go change things on a website, but like, to me, like, I think that's part of the power of your guys' business is that you are creating a pathway for succession planning.
Absolutely. We actually begin with it during discovery and welcoming a potential new owner. That's one of the questions we ask from an executive level. Not that we want them to sell 2 years in and flip it for, an immediate return. We want them thinking about succession planning, because a lot of it depends upon their people development. So they're going to develop, rock stars within their organization, future owner potential caliber employees. That's good for them. It's good for us. And to your point, it's something that when asked by, peers in the industry, what opportunities exist in franchising, to me, I would argue, yes, resales are a huge opportunity for a lot of franchisors. But there's few that are in that 20, 30, 40 year tenure. And so they're not quite seeing the opportunity yet, where transitioning existing owners, that is a huge opportunity for growth and potential risk. If left to any buyer that comes forward with a check and a heartbeat, they become your next owner. That can create challenges.
Out of the 860, how many different franchisees are there?
It's a good question. So we have right now probably around 600 individual unique. So you can obviously do quick math, 200 plus are multi-unit owners.
How big does the biggest get?
As reported in the FDD, and all my franchising legal people will appreciate, you'll see offices in the 40 million top line sales, 40 million.
And how many territories does that end up being? Like what is for a multi-territory franchise owner? How many territories will they own?
How many territories? Generally speaking, most own one. That's the pretty common approach, one unit. 200 or so in that multi. I would say the majority are two in that multi-unit. There are a few 3, 4, and 5 unit owners.
Out of curiosity, what prevents the scale? Because like if I'm thinking about, obviously you create your formula, why not continue to swallow up existing franchisees as they exit the system? Is there anything that's preventing them from hitting scale?
I think uniquely enough, sometimes it's content with what they have in terms of growth and performance. You'll see, again, FDD related items, 6+ million average unit volume for one territory. That can be big business for someone. And some would say to go and get a second unit, they've got to have the people built. They've got to have the bench of talent. They've got to be ready to reinvest. And in some cases, start from scratch again. That's not something that many of them are looking to do. The other element would be at 860 plus, I wouldn't exactly say their next door neighbor territory is available. It may already be sold and awarded to someone else. So that is where some of our resale opportunities come in. And many of the 200 plus multi, that's a lot of how they're doing it, is actually buying out an aging out owner.
And I'm hearing that it's much easier if you can build in a concentric circle so that you're obviously leveraging your relationships in that market, right?
Yes, and different than some of the franchisors out there, we are 100% requirement with full hands-on, full-time ownership. So different than semi-absentee or absentee, this requires full-time investment of the owner. And again, to that challenges on that second unit taken on, you've got to be full-time hands-on. So that means that previous unit or the next unit, you've got to really make sure you've got key people in place to help with management.
What is the cost to get in currently?
About $200,000.
Does that, out of curiosity, does that create not a challenge, but you have to be more strict with the governor on who you're saying yes to? Because at 200,000, the amount of human beings that can potentially enter a business like this is much larger than that of $1 million investment. But when you're talking about a north of 6 average unit volume, like that's a big number. Like you're playing in a category of multi-million-dollar investment. So like you have to look for the personality, I would imagine. Like it's not a $200,000 personality that you want. You need a $6 million personality to think about what is it going to be like when we build the business up.
That's exactly it. And we very quickly will bring anyone who's looking at our brand, we'll bring them to that point of what's the catch. It's 200,000 investment. I could make 6+ million, average unit volume is reported in the FDD, small team, 40-year history. The challenge is that it's exactly to your point. This is not a one size fits all. Not only are we full-time hands-on, yes, it's less expensive at 200,000, but we do need you to be owner operator. And many people who are looking to buy a business aren't always saying, I want to be full-time in the business, 8 to 5, 40 hours a week. And that is what our business requires. It's something that you've got to have that sales dynamic personality, be willing to build relationships in the community. And that's not for everyone. And it's in our best interest, both sides, to weed that out pretty quick.
Well, and this isn't meant as a negative, because the business has 800 plus locations. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, we're talking about scale. You said some people are complacent, like they're happy making what they're making. I think that's probably a condition of the $200,000 mindset versus the multi-million-dollar mindset. At some point, the multi-million-dollar mindset turns into what you said, how am I going to build a $40 million business? Like they're like, and it's not, and I would imagine you take a top owner and put him in a room and say, is it about the money? A portion maybe, but it's more about the scorecard. And so when they're looking at their business, it's more like playing the game at some point, because how much more money can they make? But it's a different mindset, right?
It's also, you incorporate typical age of a franchise buyer for us is around that 48-year mark. After they're 15, 20 years into business, it becomes life balance and grandchildren coming in, retirement. And so when I say complacency, we're all agreeing it's complacency at having reached what their mindset and goal was to build that business, create a generational opportunity if it's there. Otherwise, they're looking to sell. But yeah, to your point, those large scale, multi-unit, multi-territory who've built it is not about money. I can assure you that. I've talked to many of them, spent time with them. It became, and uniquely with our business, you can do really well for yourself financially by doing good in the community, helping people find jobs, even building their staff. That's one of the areas they find great value, is creating future leaders. The expansions that have occurred, it's with people within the organization becoming owners in future territories, future markets that they grow into. That in of itself is what they find great joy in as well.
Okay, so go back to my previous question. There's very limited pockets, I would imagine, that are available. How are you raising awareness in these markets that you do have some new territory available, but it's on a limited basis because you have size and scale?
Absolutely. Yeah. We are in as I share with our team, it's a targeted approach, very targeted approach, digital, even in market community events, to understand who in the community fits what we would see as being an ideal owner. Always got to give love to the franchise broker community, part of that leveraging those large organizations. They come in contact with so many individuals. Those markets are very specific. We are right at about 100 open territories, North America specific. So yeah, a very key list of areas that we focus in on. Does us no good to broadcast kind of a shotgun view across North America. We've got to get targeted.
Well, and then it goes back to what you said, what winning equals. Like, we're looking at resales and succession planning and new. And so you have all these different areas that I'm sure keeps the team extremely busy on various things. It's not like growth is not one dimensional.
Absolutely. Yes. And that is, you nailed it. Yes. New territory, it's resales, and of course, we've, with Canada and South Africa for the last 20 years or so, and then Australia, New Zealand since 2020. Our international growth exists. We are absolutely replicating the model that's been so successful here abroad. That does draw some attention and focus as well.
All right, philosophical, because I'm curious. And election years creates plenty of chaos. Are you able to extract data? Is there any insight that you're seeing in job movement right now, or any insight that you've pulled recently that you're like, oh, that's fascinating?
Yeah, I think as a whole, election, jobs, inflation, some of the key topics we keep hearing about. Yeah, we very closely monitor jobs. We monitor which jobs are being, either available in North America specifically or moving abroad. Those are areas that have been quite unique to see how many jobs are coming back to the U.S. in terms of skilled trades jobs, the availability and demand that exists. Anyone that would say that there's scarcity in job opportunities is incorrect. There are jobs available out there. People who are still actively looking, needing employment, that is active. We have it, it exists, and business is good in that category.
Love it. All right, let's end on this, Vinny. If there's someone that's been watching this that is like, all right, I'm intrigued. Anything else you want them to know about the business?
Yeah, I think if what they've heard is a good fit, obviously give us a call. We'd like to talk about the opportunities, the resales or new territories. To your point, it can be a big business if it's a good match.
All right, I accidentally fell into franchising in 2005. You're not far beyond that. Who would have thought that the two of us would be sitting on a podcast talking about franchising? This was not our plan.
That is not our plan, and good things happen when you allow fate to take place.
I love it. Vinny, awesome stuff. Thanks for doing this. For Vinny, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.
Thanks.